So the meridian system is based on a theory that they are essentially the vessels by which our body transports what the traditional Chinese medicine practitioners or philosophies would call qi. And so, there are 12 main meridians. It gets a bit more complicated than that. And you're correct. I don't think that the meridians existed straight away. They were mapped out very slowly. So we have like the stomach, the large intestine, the lung. We've got the 12 that I sort of discussed. And I guess where the average person could benefit is, I think that there's a sports medicine. So there's a guy called Thomas Myers who ended up writing a book based on the meridian system. So he's I believe he's a physiotherapist or he's a exercise physiologist. And what he did is he used the Chinese medicine understanding of meridians, and he started creating what are called fascial systems. And so he then modernized it even more. And so there are a lot of people that think that it's over-Westernized. And what I mean by a lot of people is that very traditionalist acupuncturists. But people like myself, I think that the more this sort of stuff, whether it, go from the discussion of meridian to fascial systems and fascial sling systems and how the body moves and understanding human movement. So for example, if we're talking about meridians and fascial systems in today's society, most of us are so anteriorly dominant compared to our hunter and gatherer, where we were moving in different planes of movement. And I'm talking about moving side to side. I'm talking about moving forward. I'm talking about moving up and climbing. So we're using all these different systems and engaging all these different systems. But in today's society, we see a lot of lower back pain. We see a lot of jaw pain. We see a lot of neck pain. We're so anteriorly dominant, and we have a flat back. We have a flat bum. Yeah, we have constantly, perceived, tight hamstrings because we have forgotten how to engage our glutes and a large portion of our back muscles. And so I think when you look at the meridian systems and you look at what systems we're using overly in today's society, you can teach people about human movement. You can teach people about acupressure points as well. So there are some really great acupressure points that, we can teach people for sleep, digestive disorders, headaches. Pretty much most of the things that we can use acupuncture for, we can switch into acupressure points. And the good thing is with Google is that you can Google most of these things and use the acupressure points. And unlike using needles, you're pretty much not really going to see any harm. It's either going to work or it's either not going to work for you. But it's definitely evolved over time. I personally I'm more of what I would call a modern acupuncturist. So even though I understand and utilize the 12 meridians, because I have to, obviously, it's part of my work, I'm so far from a traditionalist compared to, say, some of the other practitioners that you would, talk to or have on this podcast.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we're in 2021, right? So let's utilize the information and technology that we have. So acupressure points, do they all sit along the meridian system, and are they the similar points that you're putting in the needles during your practice?
Yeah, I think the bulk of I'd say most, if not all, acupressure points that you would look at, because an example would be, and I know doctors have actually taught this to some of my clients, which is actually quite incredible. So for example, there's a point between the index and the thumb, and it's a point that's commonly used for headaches. So again, if you were to Google this, I've even seen like little YouTube clips where people put like pegs. So they're sitting at a computer, they get headaches, and what they do is, instead of using their thumbs, they use a peg that applies constant pressure. So, and I know a lot of kinesiologists these days tend to use a lot of traditional acupuncture points, but they apply acupressure, and they tend to hold the points for anywhere from 10 minutes to half an hour to whatever else they're sort of taught. And so most of the time, to elicit the effect that an individual wants to achieve results with acupressure points, it tends to be an actual, a specific acupuncture point, which you do want to get its placement quite accurately. The other reason behind why you want to get it accurately is that a lot of the times we use, whether it be acupuncture points or whether it be acupressure points, is that 3 to 5,000 years ago, when they were trying to figure out why, this point treats headache as an example, they didn't really understand back then that, because they didn't have, MRIs, they didn't have CAT scans. And this is the massive benefit to being in the 21st century with this technology, is we know that this particular point there, that in traditional Chinese medicine is called large intestine 4, it's called colon 4, as its normal common name, is a common point for headache because it's on the large intestine channel. And the large intestine channel, as an example, like you were asking about meridians, travels all the way to the front of the face. This point here is said to govern and be a major point for any facial condition. Yeah, so when you press that achy point between the thumb and the index finger, when you have a headache, particularly a frontal headache, it can help reduce or clear a headache. What it won't help with is a headache on the back of the head, because we're talking about a different meridian system. And this is where you Google stuff and acupressure points, and then you'll say, yeah, cool, use the point between the index and the thumb, or, large intestine 4 for headaches. And I guess that's where, obviously, when you see a professional like myself and someone says to me, Peter, I've got a crazy migraine that's on the side of the head. From an acupuncture perspective, I would probably not use that point. There are better points to use to clear that. But for the sake of this conversation, if anyone ever has a frontal forehead sinus headache, the point between the index and the thumb, you look for the achiest point and you press on it until you feel that deep ache, anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, until you feel that dull ache start to disappear. And the other reason that it works is because every major acupuncture point and meridian has a major nerve supply. So with regards to the thumb and the index finger, underneath that area that I'm pressing is called the radial nerve. And the radial nerve has a specific connection to a spinal segment up in the neck. When you press or you stimulate strong enough, you release enough of your body's internal chemicals to help mediate and modulate pain. But you still need a practitioner to diagnose the difference between using the radial nerve versus the ulnar nerve, as an example, or why I would use points on the leg so that we can have long-lasting results. And I think that's the massive difference. You can have like a quick parlor trick of pressing that thumb index point, which will give you temporary relief or might reduce it by anywhere from 10 to 20%, compared to seeing a practitioner that takes it to the next level. And we use acupuncture points, so you're going to get a greater stimulation either with the needle, so that means a greater reaction in the areas of the brain that need to be stimulated to be able to release more chemicals, or you're going to get a better diagnosis, which means we're going to use different meridian systems on the body to have a longer lasting effect, because we don't want your headaches getting back. Anyone who comes in with chronic headaches, we don't want you getting any more. It's not like you don't come to acupuncture to get temporary relief. You come to acupuncture to try and actually put whatever condition you have into a type of remission. I don't like to use the word cure, because I cannot, once people step outside my door, unless I put like a dash cam on your head, there are so many ways in which people can undo that. And I tell that to my clients. You're only as good or as healthy as you're willing to accept where you are in your current disease state and what work you're willing to put in to get yourself out of that disease state.
If I could just take a snippet from this podcast and just post it, it would be that last sentence you said.